This is a full professional breakdown on how to create a luxury red rose epoxy dining table. We're going to walk through every single critical stage, step by step, to get you to that perfect gallery level finish. Okay, first things first, let's clear something up. You might have seen that smaller concept table online. That was an AI-generated design. It's an amazing tool, right? It helps us lock down the proportions before we start. But the big table, the one we're actually building here, that is 100% hands-on craftsmanship. So AI for the preview, skill for the execution. A lot of people try this exact design and, well, it doesn't end well. And we're not talking about small mistakes. These are expensive, super frustrating failures that are actually completely avoidable once you know what you're doing. I mean, look at this list. Brown flowers, bubbles everywhere, yellowing, cracking, it's a nightmare. And it all comes down to one thing: most tutorials show you the pretty parts, but they completely ignore the chemistry and the prep work. They skip the science, and the whole project just self-destructs. We're not gonna do that. So here's how we're gonna break this down. We've got 4 distinct phases. We'll start with preparation, then move into casting, followed by shaping, and we'll wrap it up with finishing. Now, inside those 4 phases are these 8 essential stages. And I mean essential. Every single one is non-negotiable. Skipping one, rushing one, that's where everything falls apart. So let's get started.
All right, let's get into it. Phase 1, preparation. This part covers the 2 steps that will literally make or break your entire project before you even think about mixing your first batch of resin. Step 1 is all about preserving the flowers. Here's the deal. You can never put fresh flowers directly into epoxy. They're full of water. The heat from the resin curing will literally cook the petals and you'll get this ugly, brown, rotting mess. So the fix is silica gel. You just layer it in a container, carefully bury the roses, and then seal it up for about a week. This pulls out every last drop of moisture. Then you hit them with 2 or 3 light coats of an aerosol sealer. This creates a barrier, which stops the flowers from releasing tiny air bubbles into your pour later on.
Okay, on to step 2, getting the mold ready. We're using a clear silicone mold here, which is great for spotting bubbles. First, you've got to clean it perfectly with isopropyl alcohol. Any speck of dust will be trapped in there forever. Next up is a mold release spray. This part is absolutely critical. It prevents the epoxy from bonding to your mold and tearing it when you try to get the table out. And finally, the most important part of this step, get out a spirit level and make sure your mold is perfectly 100% flat. If it's off by even a tiny bit, you're going to end up with a wobbly, useless tabletop. And just like that, we're ready for phase 2, casting. This is where the art of the layout meets the hard science of the chemical reaction. If you nail this, your design is locked in perfectly. Step 3 is all about the anchoring layer. Here's the problem you have to solve. Those beautiful dried roses are incredibly lightweight. If you just dump all your resin in at once, they're gonna float right up to the top and your whole design will be ruined. So the pro move is to pour a super thin, maybe 1/8 inch base layer first. You then carefully arrange your roses in that thin layer, pressing them down a bit. Let that cure until it's sticky, and boom, your flowers are essentially glued to the bottom. They're not going anywhere. Okay, pay close attention here because this is probably the single most catastrophic mistake you can make. There are 2 very different types of resin. You've got tabletop resin, which cures fast and gets incredibly hot. If you use that for a thick pour like this table, it will overheat, it will smoke, it will crack, it will literally self-destruct. For a project this thick, you must use a deep pour resin. It's designed to cure slowly, over several days, which lets all that heat escape safely. Using the wrong one here is a guaranteed failure. Now you're probably wondering how much of that pricey deep pour resin you actually need. Well, you calculate the volume of the cylinder. The formula is pi times the radius squared times the height. But honestly, don't worry about the math. I've put a link to a super easy online calculator in the description. You just punch in your measurements and it tells you exactly what you need. Which leads us straight to step 4, mixing that deep pour. Precision is everything. You have to measure your resin and hardener exactly. Then mix slowly, but for at least 5 to 7 minutes. And you have to keep scraping the sides and the bottom of the bucket because any unmixed resin will leave sticky spots that never cure. And here's a pro tip for a flawless mix. Use the double mix technique. Pour everything into a second clean bucket and mix for another 2 minutes. Guaranteed perfect result. And now for step 5, the pour itself. Whatever you do, don't just dump the bucket in the middle. That's how you create a million tiny air bubbles. The trick is to pour slowly down the side of the mold and just let the resin rise up gently around the flowers. To pop any bubbles that come to the surface, use a torch, but keep it moving and stay about 6 to 8 inches away. Get too close and you'll scorch the resin. Finally, cover the whole thing up to keep dust out and make sure that room stays right around 70 to 75 degrees for the next few days. That temperature control is absolutely crucial for a proper cure. So, after waiting a full 7 days for that resin to get rock hard, and yes, you really do have to wait the full 7 days, we can finally move into phase 3, shaping. This is where we take that raw, cured slab and turn it into a perfectly flat, geometric masterpiece. So the big challenge in step 6 is something called the meniscus effect. As the resin cures, it kind of climbs the walls of the mold and sinks a little in the middle, leaving you with an uneven surface. The fix for this is a tool called a router sled. After you demold the table, you make these really controlled passes across the top with a flattening bit. It just shaves off all the high spots until you have a perfectly level plane. Just make sure you're wearing a good respirator because this part makes a ton of fine dust. All right, let's talk about sanding. This is step 7. After you use that router, the surface is going to look cloudy and full of scratches. Don't panic, that's totally normal. Using a random orbital sander, we're going to work our way through a very strict progression of sandpaper grits, starting at 80. Now here's the golden rule. You cannot, under any circumstances, skip grits. If you jump from, say, 80 grit all the way to 220, you'll leave behind deep scratches that will be impossible to polish out later. And here's a little pro tip to make sure you get it perfect every single time. It's called the pencil trick, or a guide coat. Before you start with a new grit of sandpaper, just scribble some light pencil lines all over the surface. Your job is to sand until every last one of those pencil marks is gone. It's simple, but it's foolproof proof that you've sanded the entire surface evenly and you're ready for the next grit. Now, once we're done with 400 grit, we make a switch. We're gonna start wet sanding. As you work your way up through the higher grits, 600, 1,000, 2,000, and finally 3,000, you'll be spraying the surface with water as you go. And that water is super important. It does 2 things. It stops all that fine resin dust from clogging up your sandpaper, and more importantly, it keeps the surface cool so you don't build up friction heat that can melt and smear the epoxy. And this brings us to the final, and let's be honest, the most satisfying part. We're in phase 4, finishing. We're about to take that smooth but frosted-looking surface and turn it into a flawless, liquid glass mirror. The key to this amazing transformation is controlled power. We're putting away the sander and picking up a variable speed rotary polisher. You want to keep that speed right around 1,500 RPM. That's the sweet spot where you generate enough heat to polish the resin effectively without running the risk of burning it. And here it is, step 8, the final touch of magic. We'll start with a heavy cut polishing compound on a wool pad. This will buff out those fine 3,000 grit scratches and bring out that incredible gloss. But we're not done yet. To give it real-world protection from scratches and UV rays that cause yellowing, we apply a ceramic nano coating. You just wipe it on in a crosshatch pattern, wait for it to flash, and then buff it off. This creates an invisible, glass-hard shield that will keep your table looking crystal clear for years and years. A result like this doesn't happen by accident. It's the direct outcome of disciplined, precise work. When you respect every single one of those fundamental steps, the final piece just speaks for itself. So this entire explainer has been focused on creating this one specific red rose table. But obviously, these techniques can be used for so much more. Since we can't possibly cover every variation in a single video, we've put together a complete master guide. Think of it as a single, organized resource that covers different floral layouts, using round versus square molds, layered pours, tinting, advanced bubble prevention, basically everything you need to confidently create dozens of different designs without all the guesswork. So, if you're serious about mastering resin furniture, you can get the full guide and the complete list of all the materials we used through the link in the description. And hey, let us know in the comments what kind of design you'd like to see us break down in the next masterclass. Thanks for watching!